Hi everyone, welcome back to our final day together, day 5. Sad times. I've had a wonderful time making these videos for you and I really hope that you've enjoyed them too. For our last video together, I wanted to talk about the importance of raising your frequency. So, what do I mean by that? As we spoke about in the first video, we were talking about how everything is vibration. Everything in the universe is energy and everything has a unique vibrational signature frequency is what I'm trying to say. A frignature. As such, the higher we vibrate as human beings, the higher our ability to perceive. Remember we were talking about resonance, so that we can only perceive that which is within our vibrational range. So I can interact with other solid items, but I find it harder to interact with much higher frequencies, for example, things that would be usually invisible to us. However, that isn't always the case because my sixth sense is pretty well developed. I have the ability to perceive things that others who are vibrating on a lower frequency, or a slower frequency we should say, are not able to. And that's nothing personal. Everybody vibrates differently. There are some things that I'm sure I'm very blind to and that other people are able to perceive more easily, and vice versa. We all are so complex and so different in how we function. I'm neurodivergent anyway, with a few different mental processing mechanisms that are different to the neurotypical way. That affects the way I perceive the world as well, and the way I perceive time. And everybody has all these different things going on. So it's a unique, we're all unique in how we perceive the world and what we can perceive. So the way that we can interact with the more invisible realm, the spiritual realm, the realm that is very much the same as matter, but it's just of a higher frequency. So I like to compare this to water and how water can take so many different forms even though it always remains H2O. So in the same way as energy can be dense and physical and make this kind of an impact, it can also, when it vibrates faster and the molecules start to bounce off each other, it can change state into liquid, into steam, and then into vapor, which is completely impossible to see to the naked eye unless in certain conditions. So in a similar way as water can manifest as ice, liquids, steam, and vapor, we too, and all physical matter, has the ability to vibrate, to slow down its frequency so it becomes what we call matter and dense, solid stuff. Or indeed it can have its equivalent in much faster vibrating frequencies, some of which are so fast, it's a little bit like this, right? Can you see how my hand's getting blurry? If it was to go even faster, you would barely see it at all. You wouldn't see it, do you see what I mean? In the same way as we can't see the way our molecules are whizzing around to keep us physical, we don't realise that it's all an illusion of everything just whizzing so fast that it creates the illusion of this sort of permanent physical form. Anyway, let's not go too far down the rabbit hole, but the point is that in raising our frequency, we then match higher frequencies and are able to perceive higher frequencies too. So therefore we're able to receive information that would perhaps otherwise have just gone straight past if we were not vibrating in a way that was able to catch that and perceive that. And so I'm going to give you 5 things that are crucial to raising your frequency on a daily basis so that you can start to perceive the world in a more sensitive way. You are more sensitive to subtle frequencies. So number 1, declutter your space. So your space is a reflection of yourself, and how familiar you are with Feng Shui will determine perhaps how much you already know about this and the flow of Qi, which is an ancient Chinese term for energy, life force. So if a room is able to have free-flowing energy and doesn't catch itself on lots of clutter, then you won't get the stagnation that builds up and can cause density and lower frequencies to become attached. So we like to clear our space and keep everything moving. Anything that is old that we are not using, we like to give away to people that can then give it a new burst of life. And keeping things as simple, as functional, and as joyful as possible means that it frees up all that extra energy that otherwise will be dragging on us unconsciously, and frees it up for us to feel lighter and able to move freely and happily around our life without feeling constantly like, where are my keys? What's going on? I say this as somebody who struggles with this a lot, right? But it is something that's very important to me regardless of how difficult I find it. And something that can also help very much is smudging your space with well and sensibly sourced, responsibly sourced sage or Palo Santo, but it doesn't have to be anything like that. It can be rosemary dried and picked from your garden, wrapped with some lavender or some rose, bound together with twine. That will be a perfect smudge stick if it's nicely dried. Wonderful. And there's just burning that around your space once you've given it a good clear out. It's just going to lift all of that debris and just make the whole space sparkle and shine. Again, a note on that. Anything you can bring that brings you joy, crystals, salt lamps, candles, obviously being careful, anything that elevates the space and makes you feel joyful is going to help you raise your frequency and is going to match your intentions rather than drag you back. If you think of your space as either helping you live the life you want to or stopping you from living the life you want to, is very rarely anything in between. So that's number one. Number two, this is about our physical vessel, our body, right, which is our perception tool. So this is all about what we put in it. Junk food. If we're thinking of the body in terms of, basically there's alkaline and acid pH balance, and everything we consume, including our thoughts, will create either an ambient, it will either add to the acidity of our body or the alkaline pH of our body. Alkaline is the most favourable pH, within reason, obviously, but it's impossible to get it too far that way anyhow, really, because it is an environment that will shut down funguses and yeasts and bacteria and viruses. It's just not a favourable environment for those things to thrive, and it's really good at keeping our system healthy, basically. And as we slip more into acidic, which it comes from consuming too much processed sugar, too much processed anything, carbohydrates and things that really slow down our system, heavy meats that have metals in them and hormones, thoughts that cause stress in our body, so that we've got lots of cortisol, which creates a lot of acidity in the body. All these things basically create an acidic environment in our body, which is the perfect thriving environment for bacteria, for viruses, for parasites in our gut, for overgrowths of candida, of all kinds of diseases. Even cancerous cells cannot thrive when it gets to a certain level of alkalineness and acidity. It's the kind of starting point of many diseases, including inflammation and all sorts. This is all acidic. So you want to avoid where possible, within reason. Obviously, this isn't a strict thing to tell you off, but more to be aware that consuming excessive amounts of sugar is going to put your whole system into reboot. Your immune system shuts down for several hours after consuming something very sugary. So I'd look at it as a balance. Have the cake, have the crisp, have your junk evening mixed with really delicious, casserole with vegetables and stuff. But just look that on balance, you're going to want to be leaning towards... Sorry, this always starts happening after I've talked for a bit too long. Leaning towards the stuff that's going to create an alkaline environment. So you're wanting to consume dark green vegetables, really colourful root vegetables, orange, those dark purples, lots and lots of veg, lots of fresh water, filtered where possible, ionised even better. And alcohol you're going to want to avoid. Caffeine you want to avoid. A lot of people drink this daily and swear by it. I personally don't, because I'm allergic to it anyway. I do not need coffee in my life. I am buzzing enough as it is. I used to drink it just to entertain my friends. Anyway, and it's actually extremely acidic. So there are ways to create a less acidic effect. I think it's by possibly different sources, definitely organic, as well as maybe adding butter. I don't know. Google it. Google will know, I'm sure. But just know that it is very acidifying, so it is going to be detrimental to your health. So is lots of sugar. It's also, alcohol is a depressant, so you don't want to consume it too frequently. I don't drink it regularly at all, but when I do, I go hard to make it worth it. But it's not something you really want to be pulling your system down with all the time. That said, if having a glass of red wine works for you, fine, no problem. But it's just remembering to really balance that out with the deep green leafy stuff and a ton of water. Okay, number 3, supplements. So vitamins and that sort of thing, herbs. There are so many great supplements that do help to raise your frequency. Again, they're usually extremely alkaline and things that help reduce inflammation in your body and help to bring it back into harmony with itself. Turmeric is perfect to consume as regularly as possible, so is ginger, garlic. Vitamin D, get out in the sun, absorb as much of the daylight and sunlight as you can through your bare skin. Doing a bit of sun gazing is great, but you want to do it at sunrise and sunset so that you don't hurt your eyes. CBD is a fantastic supplement to work with. Plant medicine in general is absolutely fantastic. I won't go into it too detailed here because it is like a whole course in and of itself. But just to drop a few names that you might want to go and research on your own, and definitely do research. Damiana is a wonderful herb that is freely available all over the place for teas, including mugwort, which is fantastic for inducing altered states during your sleep, lucid dreaming, vivid dreams, that sort of thing. There's lots of different things there. So again, we won't get into it too much, but anything that's bitter as well, that's going to cause that alkaline effect, is fantastic. You might want to work with basil extract or some grapeseed extract. That is really alkalizing. Again, do your research though, because you don't want to overwhelm your system and start detoxing too fast or causing any unwanted effects. You've got to really know your stuff, but anything you can do that's going to support your system to eliminate excess stress and toxins that are going to put a pressure on your system, fantastic. Number 4, create time and space for you, for your spirit, for your soul. Create ceremonial windows where you can dedicate an hour to yourself, where you can either take a bath, a ritual bath, add some salt, some petals, some intentions, light some candles and some incense, anything that stimulates your senses and makes you feel enveloped in ritual intentions, to feel like this is time I've carved out for myself and now I'm going to bask in it and allow my spirit to be lifted and for impressions to come through. It creates an opportunity also for your intuition to speak to you. And speaking of which, anything you can do also to make it regular would be really, really fantastic. It gives your unconscious mind a signal that you are taking care of yourself as well. And it doesn't just have to be a bath. It can just be sitting on top of your bed with low lighting and some oracle cards, your favourite cup of tea, hot water bottle, and followed maybe by a nice uplifting movie. You know, as long as you're just taking time to take care of you and to remember what it feels like to go the extra mile to create an environment that says, I'm looking after you, this is you time, this is us time, let's communicate like you would a bit more maybe when you were little. That's really, really great. Speaking of which, anything you can do to make your inner child feel tended to, great plus on the lifting your vibes. Playing, painting, getting creative, getting mucky, going out in nature, or go on a play date, be silly, all that jazz. And the last thing is gratitude. Creating a habit of gratitude will massively impact your all-round vibrational frequency. Gratitude is so high on the frequency scale, and it is the vehicle through which we attract everything in our life that we are after, that we want. So when we are manifesting the things that we want out of our life, it's because we are connected with our deepest, bottomless source of abundance, and we feel grateful before. It's not even about before. We feel we are in a state of gratitude, and that gratitude is the same frequency as everything that would make us even more grateful. You know, it's like what we were saying about in the entrainment and the resonance. When we feel grateful, everything that would make us feel more grateful is on the same vibe as us, if you see what I mean. So people often say you have to feel grateful before it arrives. That's a bit of a technicality, and it's like, you don't have to sit there being like, oh, it's definitely already here and I love my car. No, you're just feeling grateful for everything in your everyday life. Ending the day with a gratitude journal, making a list of the things that happened today that really caught your eye and made you smile, or the things that you're looking forward to, or a pleasant memory, is just going to keep you activating that biochemical cocktail of gratitude in your system that activates that vibrational frequency. That means that everything that is on that same frequency level of that happy, juicy, so grateful for this beautiful life can access you because you are on the same page. You know what I mean? And similarly, that allows everything to just synchronize so much better. You get so many more obvious signs. You'll be seeing your angel numbers everywhere, your double digits. You'll be getting confirmation that you're on track and you're feeling good. And you'll just be noticing stuff. Your intuition will be speaking to you louder. You'll be so much more in tune with the signs and symbols out there. Okay, so that's my 5 points to raising your frequency. As a last point, I would just say, in terms of actually, going after and developing your intuition, push yourself. Like everything we've discussed in the last few days, I'd really like you to just trust yourself a bit more than you already do, and just push yourself and see experiment, basically. For example, when I first started tarot reading professionally a few years ago, I was already tarot reading since I was 14, but I didn't do it as a profession until then. And so I was suddenly in a position where everything that I already knew for myself and my friends was being, reading for people I didn't know meant I was opening myself up to so much more affirming feedback about my abilities, but also about the process of divination and connecting with my higher self and connecting with my gift, my personal way of tapping the unseen, as it were. And I've been in many situations where I've been like asked things that I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. Such as being able to communicate with, is my grandmother here? She got anything to say? Or, oh, you're a tarot reader. What do you know about me then? And I'm like, oh no, I don't know. And in those situations, I've often caught myself and been like, well, what's the harm in trying? And I've surprised myself that I've been able to give these people messages from their relatives that have passed on, or been able to access information that I didn't think I was privy to because it wasn't quite my style. I wasn't that kind of medium. I wasn't that kind of psychic. And I've become more and more able to say psychic and medium and channeling because I own it now. Whereas before I was like, oh no, that's not me. That's for the wacky, seriously, But it's just everything's on a scale. And if you don't push yourself, you don't learn what you're able to do. A really good example is I went to have my eye checked at the doctor's in the hospital a little while ago, and the woman was like, what's your profession? And I was like, I'm a tarot reader, which is always a good conversation starter. Oh, okay, well, what do you know about me then? And interestingly, I've said this in other videos, but I'm often aware of how much information I can feel off people all the time. It's quite exhausting. But rarely have I been asked to vocalize it. So often it's like a non-verbal impression where I just get the person, I understand where they're coming from, I know their kind of imprint. And she was this Filipino nurse, and she was very she had this, I don't know, I could just feel her. And she was asking, what do you know about me? And I was just like, well, I mean, that's not usually how I kind of work. But then I was like, well, I do know things about her, so I'll just tell her what I feel I know. And it was all accurate. I could see her mother shouting at her. So it's a bit awkward because often I get shown things that are like, okay, we're going to get real deep real quick. And I just had this sense that she couldn't be vulnerable at the moment. She was struggling with finding love because she's shut down in that area, and that she'd been sort of gaslit a lot as a child, and it was very like strict upbringing and all these different elements. And I was just kind of like, oh, and this and this and this. And she was like, yeah, that's right. That's the case. And we spoke about it a bit, and it is difficult trying to draw the line and being a bit like protective of your boundaries so that everything doesn't always turn into free therapy. but it was one of those moments where I was like, this is the kind of stuff that I feel like I always have access to and always know, but I never get pressed for details. You know, what do you know about me? Oh, well, I guess if I just start running my mouth, I'll just say what I'm knowing. But before that, I'm not there going, oh, I can feel her mum, and I'm just like, I can just feel her. Anyway, enough about that, but push yourselves, basically. Experiment. See if you've got a friend that you can play with, even, and just sense, you know, what the other person's thinking about. If they're really able to conjure a big image, a big, easy, colourful, bold image, or maybe play around with a stranger, you know, if you feel that you can, you know, and say, I'd like to be able to, you know, maybe give you a reading. You know, I remember many times I'd have random situations where, I remember when I was living in London, I was doing a tarot reading for myself in my room, but it was on the ground level, and somebody asked for a lighter walking past. And then in the end, we ended up chatting, and I gave him a reading on the pavement outside, and he just changed his life in that moment, and it was really, really sweet. But anyway, it's been so lovely. So thank you for being here with me. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you all. Again, as ever, if you've got any comments or questions, just drop them in the comment section under the video.